Hello, I'm Matt Reardon. Thanks for watching this Wednesday evening, October 25th West Weather Update, brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. To start here, unfortunately, we're talking about Hurricane Otis. This was a powerful, the most powerful of these storms get. Category 5 storm that impacted southwestern Mexico, really near Acapulco Bay, early this morning, really overnight, Tuesday into Wednesday. When we woke up on Tuesday morning, this was, I'll play this loop here, we were talking about a tropical storm. On just yesterday morning, it quickly strengthened, almost unprecedented, what we call rapid intensification into a Category 5 storm. So you went from tropical storm in the morning, Category 5 storm, and as you watch this loop, it's really happening right as it makes that landfall, that approach into the coastline of southwest Mexico. It's really not what we want to see as meteorologists. Unfortunately, this kind of perfect circular shape to this hurricane here, indicative of a very powerful, strong organization. Another view of this, we can actually see these strong thunderstorms, what we call the eye wall, the strongest part of this hurricane. And these flashes here are all those lightning flashes and those powerful thunderstorms wrapping around this hurricane here. Again, a sign of intense strengthening, not a good sign, unfortunately, for the folks in southwestern Mexico. Some severe damage pictures being reported from there. Still trying to get a clear picture of the extent of the damage there, but unfortunate situation for sure with this impressive satellite imagery along with it. Unfortunately for parts of eastern, the Pacific, at least in parts of southern Mexico, the National Hurricane Center identifying another area to the southeast of now what is a tropical storm or a Remnant Otis as it goes over the higher elevations in Mexico, further into the eastern Pacific here with a high chance of development. This could be potentially something we're watching early next week. Far too early to suggest kind of any impacts to the U.S. Could be similar to the kind of the last storms we saw, which really came up through the central U.S., at least in the remnant form, producing some rainfall there. Too early to say whether this would kind of try to sneak up, maybe help to bring some rainfall to parts of Arizona or New Mexico, but something we'll keep an eye on. This is really something we were talking about even at the end of September because we knew the MJO, the Madden-Julian Oscillation, would be pushing toward the eastern Pacific as a potential promotion or helping to strengthen or influence these tropical storms. And I think we can see that if we just look at the kind of global picture here from the European model, averaged out over the next 7 days of rising motion around the equator. And really when we're talking about the MJO, we're talking about this kind of pseudo-circulation that travels about the equator and promotes rising air. Rising air helps strengthen hurricanes, it produces tropical storms and thunderstorms, and that can end up impacting the jet stream and helping us to predict the weather. In the case right now, this green color you see here, this is indicative of a lot of rising motion. This makes sense because we know that MJO is really kind of part over parts of the western hemisphere here, right over, unfortunately, where Hurricane Otis developed so rapidly yesterday. So perhaps playing a role in the kind of active late season barrage here of hurricanes we've seen not only in the eastern Pacific, but even over in the Atlantic, watching some storms there as well, kind of overlapping this MJO area. Another way we can visualize that is the phase diagram of the MJO. It has spent a lot of time kind of over here in the western hemisphere in phase 8 and phase 1. And typically in those phases for the western U.S., we get inclement weather, increased rainfall, and cooler weather. And we've seen that. In fact, we're getting some snowfall today in parts of the Northwest, some rain showers in the Pacific Northwest, even parts of Northern California. So it kind of adds up here, at least where the MJO has been. The forecast right now is that it's going to stick around in this area, but may try, it's kind of hard to see in this kind of what we call the spaghetti plot here, maybe trying to exit out of this area, perhaps restarting somewhere in one of these other phases. But kind of like I was saying last week, almost in kind of I'll wait to see it to believe it. Because if you go back, a week or two ago, I was wondering if we were going to get out of here a little bit sooner, and we kind of reversed and went right back through 8 and 1 again, and I think that helped to keep us in this wetter pattern. Speaking of that wet pattern, we have a lot of rainfall, a lot of snowfall to talk about here across the northwestern U.S. We have rain showers moving through the Willamette Valley, some rain showers in eastern Washington, snow showers moving through parts of northwest Montana here. It's hard to see these. They don't show up. The snow isn't quite as bright on these radar signatures sometimes. We do see some light snowfall moving through parts of the Golden Triangle, Montana. They saw some snow here just recently. And then some rain showers trying to push into the upper Snake River Valley. Rain showers really trying to sneak into the North Valley as well. Wouldn't shock me if, a town like Chico, going up north of there, saw maybe a 1/10 of an inch, maybe a little bit more underneath one of these showers. It's hard for them to kind of rain out into the Central Valley at times, given the dry air in there. But I think we have seen some rainfall observations make it through to the ground. So these are likely to continue across the afternoon here today, lingering in the overnight, but weakening while they do that. As far as snowfall, just looking at the last 5 days of snowfall, this is valid as of yesterday, so it doesn't account for some of the snowfall that we've seen accumulate just over the last 12 hours here. But we do already have some snowfall on the ground in parts of northwest Montana, depending on exactly where you are. We did get some mountain snowfall in parts of the interior northwest and the Cascades as well. Expecting a little bit more snowfall to add to this in parts of northwest Montana. I think through the night tonight, looking at anywhere from could be 1 to 2 inches farther north near the border, getting down toward the Great Fall areas. Could see anywhere from another 4, can't rule out 4 to 5 inches of additional snowfall for folks in Montana. It's been a big event, certainly for them. If you look at the all hazards map, the advisories, the watches, and the warnings from the National Weather Service, a much more colorful map than we typically looked at. I think I showed a lot of these in spring. We had the atmospheric river events, kind of took a break until we had hurricane, or at least tropical storm Hillary come through. The map lightened up again, but now seeing some color return to this, indicative of what we typically see in fall and winter, a more active setup, more watches, more warnings, more advisories, certainly less heat advisories as we go through winter here. The pink color, those are your winter storm warnings across parts of Montana. This kind of little darker purple color, those are winter weather advisories. So we have those up in parts of the interior mountains, parts of the Cascades. And then we do have a freeze warning for southern Washington and northern Oregon. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Less advisories down further south through parts of California. We just talked about a little bit of that rainfall there. Now, I do want to talk about overnight temperatures beyond some of the snow in Montana and maybe some of the rain here. Definitely the biggest story is the frost and freeze watch as we go through October here. I mentioned some of these systems, these troughs, these weather makers that came through in late September. If these were coming through in October, we'd have more frost and freeze discussions to be had. Well, we're here now at the end of October, so certainly more widespread frost and freeze issues across the board. If we just look at overnight temperatures tonight going into Thursday morning, looking at potentially single digits under that strong snowpack in northwest Montana, potentially looking at frost and even freeze across the Snake River Valley, the Willamette Valley, staying out of it for now. But as I take this forecast forward into Saturday morning, overnight Friday into Saturday, now more freeze concerns overspreading the Willamette Valley. Freeze concerns now very bona fide across the Snake River Valley, even on the upper through the lower Snake River, eastern Washington, getting down into the low 20s, single digits continuing under that snowpack in northwest Montana. And then even the Central Valley of California, not expecting frost right now, but talking low 40s, widespread low to mid 40s across the Central Valley. Certainly going to be a chilly weekend based on what we've been used to maybe over the last 2 or 3 months or so, now that we're here at the end of October. As I take this through Sunday, those cold temperatures lingering, freezing temperatures likely really across the whole Northwest, all the different valleys that we talk about, save for the Central Valley and the North Valley here, Western Nevada. I don't want to exclude them, looking at low 20s here through the weekend. But we do see this warming trend going out into next week. If I take this and show you the next 7 days of temperature anomalies across the western U.S., you can see the very cold temperatures we just talked about in Montana, cold temperatures lingering really across the entire western U.S. Again, going back to that MJO conversation, with it really kind of parked here over the western hemisphere, not surprised to see this inclement weather, these colder temperatures moving through. As I take this forecast further out, kind of through the end of next week, we do see some milder temperatures, maybe a little bit warmer, trying to push into the far western portion here of the west region. We'll keep an eye on that. That's kind of where the forecast is trending right now. But I've been hesitant to call for a big kind of warm up and dry weather shift with the MJO lingering where it's been. I kind of went over that in the last video. If we get the ECMWF precipitation anomaly over the next 7 days, we do finally see, now this is a little bit more believable, a drying out of conditions as this storm system moves through. If I even take this forecast a little bit further out, we might see another system potentially with its eyes on the Pacific Northwest coming in at the end of next week. Don't have any details on there given it's so far out, but I think at least as this system moves through tonight and tomorrow, all the way out into next week, maybe even Wednesday to Thursday, we do get a break in that precipitation really across much of the western United States and certainly the Pacific Northwest, which has been very wet. We'll just go ahead and look at that forecast precipitation. Again, this is from the European model, the ECMWF, making this valid here as of Wednesday evening, afternoon. See those showers moving through the North Valley. Can't rule out some precipitation getting into there. More precipitation potentially moving through the Snake River Valley in the form of cold rain. Potentially even some light snow lingering through parts of northwest Montana. More showers moving through the Willamette Valley. Everybody's getting precipitation today. Eastern Washington looking at potentially a mix of rain further to the north. Rain to the south, snow to the north. There we go. Moving through that area. So I take this forecast through Thursday through the day. We see the system moving off toward the east as it gets east of the divide, seeing potentially lingering light snow showers through parts of western Montana. Can't rule out some showers here, but very light across parts of the Pacific Northwest through Thursday. We're finally getting into early Friday. We're really clearing the system out, save for some light mountain snow showers here in parts of the interior west. And I'll take this out quickly now through Saturday into Sunday, looking at those cold temperatures Saturday through Monday morning like we looked at. It's really after that Tuesday into Wednesday where We didn't see much precipitation on that forecast after we got the system out of here really Thursday night. Now the temperatures are going to be cold through the weekend, but they're warming up throughout this forecast, getting into next Tuesday, Wednesday, and then I think Thursday as well. It's going to take a while, but I think slow warming trend really starting as we get into the weekend. And there we see the hints maybe of another system kind of coming on shore here in the Pacific Northwest all the way out into next Thursday, really the beginning of November. So we're keeping an eye on that as another precipitation maker. It's very unclear how widespread that'll be at the time, but there is some support for another weather maker coming through parts of the Pacific Northwest. Not clear right now if that tries to get back into parts of California, if that tries to affect more precipitation and snowfall in northwest Montana or the Snake River Valley, just something to keep an eye on. Kind of want to go back to that MJO conversation. It's been really kind of parked here over in phase 8 and phase 1. That tends to produce more of these troughs, colder weather. Those tend to bring snow and rainfall and bring those into the conversation. The forecast right now is to try to bring this into phase 1, and from there, it's kind of anyone's guess. It could at times could try to continue to move back into the Indian Ocean, could try to move through the maritime continent in Indonesia, maybe back out into the Western Pacific. If it tries to kind of restart out into the Indian Ocean or out back into the Eastern Pacific or near Indonesia, I think that would kind of give us a break in this active weather right now. Just not clear where it's going at the moment. If it doubles back like it did last week and it stays in kind of phase 7 into phase 8, I think it's kind of a return to what we've seen, cooler weather, maybe these brief breaks with dry weather and warmer conditions, but then right back into another active system where we're tracking low pressure systems, mountain snowfall, rainfall in the valleys, potentially more frost and freezes. So that's kind of the crossroads we're at now. If we jump over and look at the Climate Prediction Center, their 6 to 10 day outlook. We have that trough moving off to the east of the divide here. The cold temperatures go with it. This is really looking out at the end of next week into early November. And then trying to warm up those temperatures. Like I said, it's going to take a while out into next week to get those warmer temperaters back into parts of California, the Willamette Valley, parts of western Washington, as we see something of a small ridge trying to come on shore there. But you'll see the precipitation ramping back up as we see a potential for another system to come on shore somewhere in the Pacific Northwest at the end of next week. And then even beyond that, we're seeing kind of a reinforcement of that pattern. So despite being warmer, we're also looking at an above average precipitation. That's not really the kind of El Nino fall forecast that we were expecting, where we expected potentially warmer conditions in the Northwest, but drier, maybe under the influence of a more dominant ridge. Right now, not quite seeing that, really seeing a signature for more of these kind of glancing low pressure systems that might bring a little bit of a warm up, but more rainfall with them as well. And I think what we're seeing here is we just haven't seen the Pacific jet stream kind of respond in an El Nino like way. And when I say that, I'll just kind of draw it out to make it a little bit more clear. This is the ECMWF ensemble. Sometimes take this out a little bit further to see where the forecast models are looking at in that kind of long range, maybe getting out into the week and a half territory. And I've asked this to go out all the way 10 days out into Saturday, November 4th. And I see, at least from the ECMWF ensemble here, a lot of what we have seen. So we have a very strong Pacific jet stream extension coming onshore in Washington and Oregon, likely to bring some of these systems through, keeping us wet in the Pacific Northwest, keeping some of these cold fronts through, bringing temperatures down at times. But we're not seeing this big split out in the Pacific, something like, okay, the jet streams here in the Pacific splits into a big upper level ridge across British Columbia, Washington, Oregon, keeping this area dry. And then with that split further to the west in the Pacific, if that would occur, that would allow that subtropical branch to come up through perhaps parts of Southern California or Arizona, maybe even at times getting into the parts of Central Valley, the central coastline, bringing some of these low pressure systems through the coastal areas near the Salinas Valley in Nevada and Utah. That's kind of the more typical El Nino pattern we expect. Not seeing it yet. It's just maybe taking a while for the El Nino pattern to take hold. It's only October. Perhaps we shift into that maybe Pacific split flow I was talking about more later into the winter and get a more typical winter El Nino, just taking its time here in fall to kind of recognize that background circulation. That could be the case. So this is, I think, is the reason why the Climate Prediction Center has continued that above average precipitation signal for the Pacific Northwest. At least right now, we don't see one of these big diving troughs like we just had here, bringing temperatures way down. So that could be good news if we're trying to avoid some of these freezes in parts of the Willamette Valley or the Central Valley. But nonetheless, that wet signal continuing, as long as that Pacific jet stream is going to stay kind of focused on the Pacific Northwest, we're going to see more systems. And that's the forecast as it is right now until we get that split further out into the Pacific. Not going to see a big change in that forecast, I don't think. It is a 10-day forecast. I can never put too much confidence in that, but it's what we're looking at right now. Kind of finished things up last time, or at least right after I talked to you all about a week ago. We got the new Climate Prediction Center. Their seasonal winter forecast came out on October 19th, so I wanted to discuss that quickly. Temperatures up at the top here, precipitation down at the bottom. At least at a glance, it looks very kind of typical of an El Nino winter. So this is December, January, February 23 into 24 here. We see what I mean by that is that more indicative of that split flow I was talking about. In fact, if kind of over here you could imagine the Pacific Ocean, perhaps you have a split in the jet stream, an upper level ridge dominant across parts of the Pacific Northwest, but then that subtropical branch pushing through parts of California, bringing elevated precipitation probabilities through parts of Central Valley, through parts of perhaps Southern California, getting into parts of Arizona, Nevada, helping boost the Colorado rainfall and water budget there, and perhaps the Sierra Nevadas as well. It's hard to say exactly when that shift could occur. I think that's the expectation right now with El Nino still developing. Sometimes it takes a very frequent or active week at the end of December. If it rains enough then and it rains enough perhaps in early February, that's enough to kind of boost an above average year despite the in-between weeks being a little bit more normal. So it's just not clear whether this is going to come kind of all at the end of December, it's going to come all in January, come all in February. I think those details are left to be ironed out, given that's really kind of a 2 to 4 month forecast, at least at this point. All else equal, I think this is good news that we're still now kind of on the eve of November looking at a textbook El Nino forecast for the western U.S. and that not seeing widespread drought concerns through winter for parts of California, parts of the Colorado River Basin, parts of the Pacific Northwest. We still have a little bit of lingering concern for drought, at least parts of maybe Montana and Idaho, but with the snowpack we have, with a lot of the rainfall we've had recently, I think that's going to go a long way toward pushing that off. So no dire forecast here of a totally missed El Nino. We'll have to keep an eye on this going forward to look at any changes, hopefully to know more as we get into December here. But right now, still looking at a textbook El Nino forecast as far as the Climate Prediction Center is concerned, and I don't see enough to disagree with that. That's all I have for you all today. Thank you for watching.